Hello, everyone. Welcome to the AirOps Growth Leader Series. I am joined today by Aleyda Solis. How are you today?
I'm great. I'm great. Thank you very much for the invite and having me. I'm very happy and very looking forward to share with all of you today.
Yeah, it's a huge day for us. We are going to have a big announcement a little bit later on that you can get early access to around AI search. So we're excited to talk about that. But let's not forget about a tradition that we have here. If you are new here, if you could put a star in the chat, drop a star if this is your first time. This is Aleda's first time, so she can have a star. And if you have been with us several times, go ahead and put a rocket ship there so I know who is here. Tori, thanks for joining us again. Matthew, Bailey, welcome. First time. Oh my goodness, I just saw like 8 rocket ships go past. That means you've been here maybe even before I was. Gemma, welcome. Donna, good to see you. And Robin, thanks for joining us. And where are you located, Aleyda? You're over in Europe, correct?
Indeed, I am in Spain.
Great. And your day has been going pretty good so far. I'm on the East Coast of the US, so I'm just getting started here.
Yes, so far so good. And well, hopefully we'll get better after the webinar, I expect.
Yeah, for sure. Given another minute for everyone to come in, we are talking about AI search and the actions you can take, the checklist that you need to appear in LLMs to optimize your current SEO strategies for AI search, maybe some things you can keep doing, maybe some things to change, maybe some things to emphasize. So we're going to go ahead and jump in because we have quite a bit of information. Aleyda has done such a great job. I'm very excited for this. So really, she needs no introduction. She is an international SEO consultant, founder at Orainti, maker of Learning AI Search, and probably where I get the most info from Aleyda is SEO FOMO. Great newsletter for everyone. Please sign up if you haven't already. And of course, you may have even seen her in person. She's travels quite a bit, speaks very frequently. Such a valuable resource to the SEO and search community. So very glad you're here.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, and a special announcement from AirOps today. You can now win AI search before your competitors. You can now track and audit your visibility in AI search across multiple different platforms. And then you can also take action with those AirOps workflows to improve your visibility and prove that pipeline impact to the C-suite. We're very excited about this. So much more information is coming today on our blog, on socials, everywhere. But if you want early access, please go ahead and email us at growth@airops.com. You can put AI search in the subject line, get early access, and book your strategy session today. More details come in on this throughout the webinar, so hang tight, but go ahead and get your place. We would love to see it. And so let's go ahead and move on over to our agenda. So key differences is what we're going to tackle first between search and AI search metrics. Then Aleyda is going to give us a great 10-step checklist for AI search that you won't want to miss. Then AI search do's and don'ts. What should you do? What should you not do when optimizing for AI search? And then again, early access to the AirOps visibility to action platform, key takeaways, and then of course, some time for Q&A at the end. So Aleyda, I'm going to turn it over to you. If you can start to share your screen, that would be great.
Perfect.
And you can take it away.
Excellent. Allow me to share my screen now. You're seeing the presentation, right?
Yep. And go to slideshow. There we go.
Yeah, I am going to move it directly to the slideshow format. And I wanted to take a little bit of a step back, let's say, before starting into the more actionable section of the presentation in order to assess really where we are and how we are moving forward, and in general, how the shift that is happening from traditional to AI search is moving, and what changes and what not. Because based on that, is how we are going to be able to optimize for it and keep things that we have been already doing and will continue to work well, and what actually is going to change in now that we need to also optimize for these other platforms, right? So from what I have seen so far, there are actually three key areas of differences here between AI search and traditional search: search behavior, query handling, optimization target, authority and popularity signals, and the results presentation. So I love to do mockups, to provide and visualize clearly the changes. And I did this to compare traditional search versus AI search, right? Traditional search usually, and I know that this has been evolving and continues to evolve, but in general, if we compare the queries that are searched in traditional search versus AI ones, they are short, keyword-based, one-off queries, also with a high navigational intent. We know how many of our users, the audience, use the 10 blue links as if they are many times the bridge to the internet. That had happened a lot so far with a lot of branded oriented and navigational related queries, right? And yes, it's true that over the years, there had been also an evolution from 2 or 3 keyword terms to longer terms, more long tail, indeed. However, the type of the conversational queries, conversational-based queries that we see in AI search are also different in intent and in nature. They are multi-turn queries with a high task-oriented nature. There is the subset of queries that we hadn't seen in the past. So, for example, if we think about it, we have like an overlap of queries of the type of, I need guidance to learn AI search optimization, for example, that we see in both AI search and traditional search platforms. There are other more, let's say, keyword-based head terms, branded navigational type of queries that we have seen more and keep seeing a lot more in traditional search, like learn AI search, or using it to jump directly to the URL of a website, the homepage of the website many times. But then this new subset of queries that users hadn't searched in the past with traditional search results because the functionality was not there. And now they are searching for those, like, please help me creating a detailed 6 months AI optimization roadmap, for example. Much longer tail, much more task-oriented, and the one that literally are requested to an AI assistant, not necessarily only a discovery channel, right? So it's important to assess that it's not one or the other. Indeed, there's a complement here and there's an evolution taking place. Then we also have query handling, right? And it is like the single match query of traditional search versus the query fanout that we discover when Google disclose and launch about how AI mode works, which is pretty much the generation of multiple subqueries related and connected with the main term, with the main query that is being searched, in order to be able to provide a much more comprehensive answer, an answer that touches different angles of the main query, right? And there were many great examples given, but the one that I really like is, okay, maybe you search for beginners paddle tips, for example, in traditional search, and that doesn't mean that you will only get pages that literally talk about beginners paddle tips, but yes, pages that fulfill at an overall basis, let's say, this informational type of intent, right? Getting started with paddle, for example, or a little bit more comprehensive than just beginner's paddle tips type of guides. But yes, those that pretty much match this intent, overall intent of the query that you have searched. However, nowadays we see, if we request or we search for prompts like give me beginner's paddle tips, the type of queries that will be generated that we can see in through the Chrome DevTools across many different Chrome extensions that have been also lately released in order to identify what are those subqueries that are generated through by ChatGPT. We can see variations like paddle advice for new players, or beginners paddle mistakes, or paddle surf technique beginners. So all connected characteristics to the main queries to ultimately generate and identify better snippets or passages to synthesize and generate an answer that ultimately is comprehensive and fulfill those needs of users, right? So indeed, there's definitely that. And then also this connects very well with the next one, optimization target. Traditional search is not that Google didn't have the sophistication to understand semantic relevance. No, it was there, because I have seen this also so far, unfortunately, being shared like, oh, it's like if we went from a word of traditional search connecting like generic keywords at a very basic match, right, with the page. No, we know that it hasn't been like that since a long time ago. However, what actually changes from an optimization target and content relevance standpoint is how this is matched and the level of where this is matched. With traditional search, we know that this is page level relevance. Again, beginner paddle tips as a search query. We know that Google will look for a page that fulfills that need at a page level. And usually all of the URLs that we'll see in the SERPs will be those that overall at a page level fulfill that particular intent of that query, right? That help to fulfill that need. However, with AI search, this happens at a passage or chunk level of relevance. So there might be pages that are not necessarily talking or covering anything about beginner paddle tips, but maybe this is a thread in which someone provides some sort of paddle tips, but the actual thread was about what are the best ways that people have improved their paddle games overall, not necessarily beginners, but there's an answer that pretty much focus on the beginners audience. So in that particular case, AI search can identify that particular chunk and passage of information and use it for the answer, right? And use it as one of the sources for the answers if identify that it will fulfill, if it correlates and confirms the information that they see across many other different pieces of content or pages that they have identified. And is authoritative. It might have been written by someone who has a lot of experience. So they decide to use it as part of the answer. And when we take a look at which are the sources of the answers, we will see a thread that will have never ranked necessarily in the top position of Google, but it's too broad, right? But yes, but it has a passage, it has a particular chunk level of information that really connects with that and has been used for that. So different levels, like same principles, but different levels of matching. Then the authority and popularity signals. And again, this is nothing completely extremely new, but the ways that this has been applied, or these have shifted in the way that they are applied is real, right? Like in traditional search, links and engagement based popularity at a domain and page level is the one that has been taken into account. We know that there's much more just in the number of backlinks, but the authority and the relevance of the sources, for example, have a signal, have a place, have a role, a very important role. The engagement of the user also with the website has a role, and so forth. And especially in local SEO, in certain context, citations, mentions from certain sites, local directories, for example, local platforms also had an important weight, right? But we know that citations per se were not necessarily the most important factor, popularity factor for traditional search. On the other hand, now with AI search, we have mention and citations and entity-based authority at passage and concept level taking a much stronger let's say, role. We understand and we know that the times that you are mentioned as a reference, as an entity connected with the particular topic for which the user is researching through the platform, right? It has an important role as well. You don't need a backlink or a direct backlink that is followed in order to pass authority or popularity anymore, although that will be great as well. It's not the only way. And not the most important way necessarily, right? So there is this, let's say, rebirth or refine or enhance importance of mentions and citations that wasn't there in traditional search. And then, of course, the results presentation. That, again, this is a little bit of a chicken and egg because the format and the UI changes so much that it also incentivizes a change in the behavior of the user. So these two connect with each other too. In traditional search, rank lists of multiple link pages, you had different options, more and more wizard features as well, of course. But yes, you had a certain limited number of options that you could choose from. Now with AI search, you have a single synthesized answer with mentions and secondary links to sources, because yes, we have the links at the bottom in the sidebar. In certain scenarios, you through the content as well, through the answer. But that is not the primary, let's say, layer of outcome that is expected from the user, because across so many, a very high share of the queries and the prompts, because of the intent of this, they can be and should be fulfilled directly just by the output, just by the answer, without having to engage much further and having to go directly to the links in order to get a final response or that will provide satisfaction for the user, right? So the expectations and the metrics and the goals should change and should shift accordingly, right? So as you can see, saying that nothing changes is too naive, unfortunately, and saying that everything changes is also not necessarily 100% true. There's an overlap for sure, and I can see that for a long time, even if Google ends up switching completely to AI mode, and now they started just to test a few days ago in the US their new web guide format that pretty much is a hybrid of AI mode with the SERPs format, providing summaries of the SERPs. Even if they end up moving forward with that type of approach and with that format, not necessarily AI mode, in any case, these are two types of searches, let's say, that will, let's say, need a balance from each other, and that we will need to take care of both for a little bit, I think. And so an extreme shift not necessarily happen from one day to another, and it's important to, let's say, open up and expand our skills in order to take care of both, and also identify the opportunities to grow further and to expand and diversify accordingly. I think that for a long time in SEO, we were complaining of having all of our eggs in a single bag. Well, that won't necessarily be there anymore, right? With AI search, I see this as yet another platform, a platform that allows us to, even if not rank in the first position in Google, to get visibility in different ways and have an influence with our target audience in different ways as well. So how do you optimize your content for AI search? So here's our checklist that I will keep updating, and I see that is evergreen and evolving because, of course, of all of the changes, releases, evolution that we see at the moment. But I believe that these are very ingrained in principles that we have seen so far that works well in search as a discovery platform independently of the flavor, right? Whether if it is for Google, if it is for TikTok, if it is for any other platform out there, the principles are the ones that, let's say, matter. And in the case of AI, this is the blend, or this is the flavor that it has taken, right? And I have tried to provide actionable steps for each one of them. And the first one is research and assess your AI search platform audience behavior, which again is nothing necessarily new and is important to do it at every single platform that we start working with, because understanding how your audience searches specifically is fundamental in order to identify how much of a difference there is, what is the difference in intent. As we mentioned before, there might be an overlap, but yes, there's a subset of queries and topics that might necessarily only be seen in AI search platforms as well that we will need to target. And this will allow us to identify, well, what are those questions that are actually meaningful from a business standpoint, that are on topic, that are on brand, that our competitors might already have some visibility for, but we haven't yet, and we need to start leveraging, right? So for that, certain best practices here, identify the AI search platform that your audience uses, because, well, I have seen quite a bit of a difference between countries. I have clients that many times target different locales over the world, and depending also on the industry, certain industry are much more techy than others and use more ChatGPT. In others, like certain websites, I've seen quite a bit of traffic being referred and generated by Perplexity, even more than ChatGPT. So yes, it's important and it's fundamental to start validating this very well, especially now with AI mode being released more and more across different markets is critical. And also, I believe that the search behavior that we will see in AI mode will be not necessarily the same type of search behavior, again, that we see in ChatGPT, because of how integrated AI mode is at the end of the day with traditional search with Google, which is different. The entry point is different, the one that we see in ChatGPT. So the audience in ChatGPT might do much more task-oriented type of queries and intent, and with AI mode, it might continue to be still very quite informational and commercially driven, right? So it is critical to start tracking the traffic with GA4 in case you haven't yet. Identify the most popular and relevant queries prompts used by your audience to search for products and services across different channels. In particular, the content that attracts more of those different type of traffic across platforms, right? And we will see that a lot, and I have seen this being true for a lot of websites. A lot of the websites that are getting traffic so far from AI search platforms are getting it from the homepage, from the help center, not necessarily with the typical category page or product page, but or solutions page, but with the homepage, because of the brand and how many citations and references they get from the brand and the information, the overall information that they provide at the homepage, and then help center, the community, if they have a lot of community information and forums, a lot from there as well, because many times the intent of the prompts connect very well with that information that they have across all of these pages. So it's important to compare where is the traffic going from AI platforms versus the ones that you traditionally have work in your web architecture for traditional search, because they might not necessarily be the same, right? So based on that, we'll be able to identify and establish differences, commonalities, and help to have a good input in our AI search strategy accordingly to avoid wasting our efforts. So use your analytics again, identify the most important AI search platforms. These are things that we need to do. Identify the most important popular prompts referring your site to from AI platforms using third-party tools, and we will see how AirOps will help with this as well. Research the most popular prompts related to your brand, products, or service topics as well, for which you might not necessarily be shown completely at this point, not necessarily so far. And also the ones for which your competitors might be showing that are not necessarily brand oriented, but might be worthy for you to target as well. So a little bit of a benchmark there is important. And then what it is critical to avoid is ignore referral traffic from AI sources. You really need to track, and unfortunately, especially what Google hasn't made a great work so far, unfortunately, with any filters. We are still waiting with Google Search Console to have any sort of information or filter in specific, in particular, to segment and to establish specifically for sure the behavior of the prompts from AI mode, for example, the ones that are triggered with AI overviews. With ChatGPT, we love to complain from Google, but ChatGPT, they haven't released anything for website owners, right? So unfortunately, I see that there's also this lack of data so far. Hopefully that changes in the future, but so far, this is a challenge. It's a big challenge, but it's important to understand how we shouldn't assume that behavior is the same, and we shouldn't fail to analyze competitors' also visibility in order to have a little bit of a good benchmark of where we are based on them, right? So again, even if we don't have specific prompts data, we can do a little bit of validation of what is getting triggered with AI overviews, what are the longer tail type of queries, even that we see with Google so far, and take it from there. When playing around, also validating directly and taking action directly with the most popular AI search platforms that we work with. Thankfully, there are more and more solutions for this, like with AirOps. There's part of the big announcement, so it is a little bit of a sneak peek that they will do today. As you can see, they will start to provide information about the top queries, the top prompts, and what are their different types, what are the intents, at what stage of the funnel they are, the consideration awareness of decisions stage, what are the top topics. We know that prompts, unlike keywords, right, much more difficult to specifically categorize, and they can vary a lot, and they are not worded exactly in the same way every single time. So what are the top topics for which you are shown and which are not, right? And where there are more opportunities for you to move forward, where it will compensate for you to start creating more content in order to surface more often or in a better way, with the right sentiment, because you are not shown, or you are not shown in such a positive note necessarily so far, right? So there's definitely that first step. Then secondly, optimize for content, AI crawlability, and indexability. And this is something that is a principle that we have in traditional search, but here we need to take a further step to understand the specific behavior of AI bots, crawling and indexability, because in tests, again and again, in the last few months, we have seen how AI search platforms, unlike the bots of Google, for example, or Bing, they don't render JavaScript, client-side JavaScript. So if you over-rely for your navigation or main content or on client-side render JavaScript, well, it's unfortunate, and you will likely hurt the chances of this content to be shown in the answers of AI platforms. That is very, very important to validate, to double check. Also, if you are allowing the AI platforms bots to crawl completely all the content that you want to surface. Also, you might want to allow them to crawl certain areas that even with the Google, for the Google bot, you didn't before, because that will have generated for the Google bot content duplication issues because of how Google works, traditional search results work. But for AI bots, well, since they don't rank pages, you want to allow them to crawl those internal search results, for example, on your website, to identify that information that might be useful to obtain answers, or to provide answers, to use, to train them for answers that you didn't for Google, because for Google, that will have been a waste for them, and only to find content duplication, that's it, but not necessarily for AI bots, for example. So this is fundamental. Also, don't assume that, oh, I am allowing the Google bot, etc. I should very likely allowed so far AI bots. No, go and take a look at your CDN. If there's anything configured there that you might not necessarily know that you are blocking for some reason because of some security configurations and so on, and you are not allowing AI bots to crawl the content. So Again, like for example here, content that you will create, HTML-based content. Again, let's go back to basics, web standards, allowing key crawlers in robots.exe, AI bots whitelisted in firewall, CDN rules, server-side rendering, not overusing JavaScript for navigation or core content, and no blocking also in meta tags. Also, a good use of canonical tags, internal links are crawlable and descriptive with href-based tags as well. So technical SEO, I believe, is one of those areas that need to be, well, rethought on their importance even further with AI search. And if you thought that, oh, all of our web architecture is well optimized for Google, well, it's time to do a little bit of an audit again to ensure that that's still true for AI bot as well. So a bad example here, you're blocking AI crawlers, or you are only client-side JavaScript rendering to access some content, or you are no indexing certain type of content because you thought that for Google it will cause content duplication issues or cannibalization issues. But for AI bots, this is content that might be actually useful because it provides some additional information, and there is not, let's say, something negative or a negative outcome by allowing AI bots to access that additional information, right? And for that, we already have in SEO a lot of crawlers that simulate the behavior of the different versions of crawlers that search engines use. It's important that we, besides simulating the behavior of AI bots, we also go and take a look at the actual log files of our servers or the CDNs. A lot of SEO tools allow integration with them, the more enterprise level, in order to see the activity from the different AI search platforms and what they crawl, what they don't crawl, if we are actually allowing them to see all of our content or not. Showing a screenshot here of one of them. There are many, but I believe that is fundamental to avoid assuming that all is good just because so far it has been good with the technical SEO configuration that we have had for traditional search engines. But we need to make sure that we also comply with all of this with AI bots in particular, and topical breadth and depth optimization. As we saw, one of the differences is that AI search platforms break complex queries into multiple related subqueries, facets, angles, intents, covering, let's say, a topic in a very comprehensive way in order to provide a very comprehensive answer as well, that are executed in parallel to retrieve, again, the most relevant content for each aspect, right? And to use that for the answers, to synthesize that information from the diverse sources, right? And that is why it's even more important than ever to have comprehensive coverage, ideally through topic clusters for each one of the relevant topics that our brands are about, that are actually relevant for our brands and our business. So this is, again, not completely new, and it's not that we didn't wanted this for traditional search engines. We did, but the implications of this, because of how query fanout works and explore different user intents, makes it even more important for AI search on one hand. Then on the other, I believe that unfortunately, because of the way that many of us try to leverage in traditional search, again, going for very popular topics, right? Many times, not necessarily topics that were very tightly connected with our product or our business intent, or that were necessarily on topic, right? Because unfortunately, websites were chasing just traffic, many times not necessarily that meaningful. We saw how, for example, these were done in a way that, or that was disconnected for the business, was in the blog post, for example. And we saw, I don't know if you remember, but specifically in the Google Core update from December last year, how many very authoritative websites for very strong brands even drop in traffic for some of their articles in the blog post because they have created content as part of their content strategy, covering content for which they were not necessarily relevant. They were very disconnected topic-wise from what we offer, right? So my point here, the hub and spoke approach, topical cluster approach, that literally what it does is to tell you, okay, you need to create a comprehensive pillar page, which is the hub, and create then for your subtopics for each one of your sub areas that you want to actually cover, because these are topics that are connected to what you do with your business, specific pages, cluster pages that will cover those subtopics. What is important here is that these topics are actually connected with what you do, that make sense for the customer journey, that answer actual queries, actual questions that you have identified that your customers and your users actually ask about your brand. So it fulfills a need, because it's indeed not a trivial work to create this, right? It's important to invest a lot on original, expert-driven, experience-first content, right? So, for example, a good example of a pillar page for if you want to make one of technical SEO, right? Technical SEO is pillar page, a core aspect of technical SEO, and we have crawlability, we have indexability, we have rendering in the case of for JavaScript. Optimization, and then for every cluster page we have a cluster page for crawlability. We'll have another one for indexability. We'll have another one for rendering. We'll have another for cover vitals. We have another one for internal linking, and so on. So every subtopic will need to have a single one, and again, not completely new, but becomes much more critical here because of how the query fanout technique works and how that is used for AI search. So this is good because a pillar page summarizes the facets and links to in-depth resources, and these in-depth resources will be the likely the ones that will AI platforms will use in order to identify this particular topic, subtopics information to provide a to synthesize and to be used for answers, right? And bad example would be to have a single shallow page trying to cover it all without really going in depth and providing information that is actually worthy to be cited, is actually meaningful, is actually unique, is actually relevant for your brand, right? No internal linking, no dedicated URLs for individual subtopics, everything in a single page without proper structure. Yeah, it's unlikely and much more difficult, will make much more difficult for AI platforms to identify that as a good source of information. And there are many free resources and tools right now in order also to try to simulate this query fanout coverage. One of this is the one that I'm showing on screen here that you can use very quickly, just double validate that. Besides the content platforms that also provide traditional features for this, but I wanted to offer something free resource that you can go and check out, especially particularly because it connects well with the typical sub-queries generated with the fanout technique. And then optimize for chunk level retrieval. Again, nothing completely new, because this has to do a lot with readability, right? And there were quite a few comments out there when this was announced as, let's say, one of those areas of optimizations and that we needed to take care of. And people were like, oh, you were not doing this for traditional search results. Yes, but the implication of this and how because of how AI search platforms work and grab information, we want to make it even easier, right? The stakes are higher. The influence of this is even more important, right? So breaking content to passages or chunks that are easier to retrieve for AI platforms for the synthesis process, it's even more meaningful than ever, right? That's why you should optimize each section of your content as a standalone snippet that is relevant by itself. So each one of your snippets or paragraph, for example, should be independently understandable and meaningful. Keep passages also semantically tight and self-contained as well. So each paragraph or a couple of paragraphs together for specific concepts that you want to explain or offering. One idea per section also is a good way to easily move forward with it. Using structure and well-formatted HTML with clips or headings also for every subtopic as well. And this is a good example. You have a subheading for what is technical SEO, then a paragraph that explains at a high level, what it is about. It works well in itself as a concept, right? One-click concept, self-contained and understandable, structure with a clear heading, a concise explanation. Then a bad example will be this one, right? That tries to cover too much and too little content, not in depth, not self-contained, too many concepts, too many entities, and too little text, right? So not semantically tied, and unfortunately, very shallow also to cite, I will say. Again, many resources out there. For me, in this case, I love it when you are working with a great copywriter who knows a lot about readability, and a lot of content tools also provide like a readability analysis and validation. But there are also free tools now that allow us to chunk the content that you can copy paste, and they validate for you. It's like, is this well structured in a way that we know that it is easy to use by AI search platforms like the one that I am showing here, that is completely free by Dejan as well. And the fifth
Hey, Aleyda, real
step,
fast, if you could just do maybe the title slides, and maybe we could go in a little bit deeper some other time. I know we got about 20 minutes left, so just want to make sure we get through the top 10 points here.
Oh, okay. So you want me to skip all of this already, or
I mean, if you could just do maybe like the titles of just like the key last 5
high
points.
level?
Yeah,
Sure
exactly.
thing.
Thank you.
More than happy. Okay, so the next ones will be optimized for answer synthesis, because we know that AI search engines synthesize multiple chunks from different sources into a coherent response. So summarize complex ideas clearly. This is very connected with the one before. Use natural language Q&A format can be used very well for this. Flavor, pain, factual, non-promotional tone. That is also important for authority. Using structured data, those also helps a lot. Well, you have here a couple of examples that you can check out later on, but because of timing issues, I can't go in depth so far. But again, we have a lot of content tools that provides good feedback for this in order to make sure, and as you can see, this is very connected with the chunkability, let's say, of the content that we saw before. And optimize for citation worthiness, that again, EAT principles. This is nothing completely new, but gets even a higher importance here because of the role of citations, right? So using specific up-to-date verifiable claims, showing authorships and credential for EAT signals. I remember so many debates and back and forth regarding, if EAT was a ranking factor or not. Like, a non-issue now. Does it matter? Not necessarily. What is important here is to showcase to your audience, your customers, that this is worthy to cite. Refresh content regularly. And again, if you can use the author organization structured data, include citations, links to studies, and to expert original sources of the information that you're showcasing, the easiest it will be to get. So again, different tools that you can use to validate this very, very easily. So you can make sure that, your content is easier to cite from your own source. And this is the next level, let's say, for that optimization, is optimizing for content authoritativeness signals. So as a, let's say, byproduct of you doing a good work before, is that you should also get cited by third-party websites and other brands as well. But you can also influence that by doing a good work in the distribution of your own content, doing digital PR, securing coverage in industry and expert publications, promoting your content across relevant third-party channels, publishing original research reports, conducting surveys. Unfortunately, a lot of businesses starting to question how important it is to invest in informational content, top of the funnel content, because of the great decoupling. And I will say it is critical because of this, still being critical, besides the role that this has from a, because customer decision on buying from you or not, of course. And this has to do with authoritativeness, ultimately. Again, it's not only about providing EAT signals, but making you look at the authority that you are in your field, right? And to being endorsed with citations, with backlinks, and so on, with coverage from publications, from communities and platforms where your audience are. This is fundamental. And again, AirOps, as we can see here, has now functionality that allows you to see this information. So this particular bit will become even easier to implement. And optimizing for multimodal support, again, nothing new. Images, videos are important, but I would say because of the challenge in AI platforms to identify, let's say, to crawl and to index a lot of these configurations, it is even more important than ever to make it super easy for them to crawl it, to access it, avoid any sort of JavaScript only rendering or lazy loading or implementation, using also semantic HTML. It seems a little bit of something from the past. Accessibility here is important, which has other goals and implications as well, but is even more important here because of this. A good alt description, avoiding, again, JavaScript render only content or lazy loading pages or images or thumbnails for your pages. It's fundamental. And to start wrapping up, optimizing for personalization resilient content. In this case, it's because of how AI platforms will tend to personalize the experience based on the interactions and the contextual signals. So again, one of the things here that I always tell to my clients now is to make it easier for the users to engage with your content, because that will make them to be cited and to refer, at least improve the chances to be referred in the future again, right? So to incentivize this engagement, I provide here a few examples, and here a couple of screenshots asking for a query, like a question regarding a specific topic, one at the US level and another one at the Atlanta level. Let's imagine that ChatGPT in this case can geolocate me. I have had to specify the location in this case, but if they were able to geolocate me, if I search for near me, or if I didn't have even to specify my location, they will have referred me to the same player here, to the same website as a source at the US level and the city level in Atlanta. And if I search from New York, or I say search from LA or any other city, it will refer me the same brand, the same player. Why? Because they have location pages. So think about what are the different angles and the different areas and how you can engage your users in different ways based on the personalization they will have from AI platforms on one hand. And of course, to monitor your content, last but not least, the performance that each one of these have, the audience AI search behavior, AI search presence versus competitors, not only if you are shown, but if you are shown in a positive light, the sentiment, if you are shown along with a link, if there are any links in there or not, because that, let's say, maximize the chances for traffic, the AI search traffic activity within your website already, the crawling and indexing behavior over time again. And AirOps again, they are releasing, one part of the releases that they have is about this, to allow you to monitor the evolution over time that your website has and how it is surfaced for meaningful queries that you track across the different AI platforms. And I will allow them to talk more about this, but as you can see, all of the different points, angles, validations to be made, some of them more new than others that already existed for traditional search. But as you can see, with this extra layer, let's say, of focus that is much more meaningful now because of the main characteristics of AI search platforms. I hope that this has been meaningful. I have created also some resources that are free that you can use. This AI search optimization checklist is available as a Google Sheet that you can download if you want. I created also a GPT completely for free that you can use to obtain, to validate much more easily with ChatGPT directly for this. And also the learningaisearch.com website, where I have tons of resources, reliable resources for AI search optimization that is completely for free, that you can start using. Thank you very much.
Yes, that was fantastic. We definitely want some time for questions as well because we have a lot coming in. Nicole from AirOps, who leads our product marketing, is going to tell everyone about what's going on today at AirOps. Huge launch for us.
Awesome. Thanks, Josh. Thanks, Aleyda. That was really fantastic. Excited to get into questions. So today, very exciting. Everything that we just discussed in the webinar, we have available in early access. As we mentioned at the top of the webinar, you can reach out to us about getting a demo to join this early access program. But I'm going to run through a really quick demo for you guys. So what you're seeing now is the overview page of our AI search visibility insights. So this is going to be the dashboard where you're really able to understand how you're showing up in AI search, with brand visibility being our North Star metric. So we run a deep research workflow to understand what are the questions where you're showing up, where you're not showing up, and we benchmark that against your competitors just to understand what are the opportunities across all of your content and your social conversations that you really need to prioritize to get ahead of your competitors, to be the first to show up in those answers. So like I said, how you are benchmarking against your competitors is extremely important. It's not just the questions that you're showing up in. We also look at how you're being cited and where you're being cited. So just to overview again, mentions are going to be anytime AI search is mentioning your brand. Citations are where you're going to see those actual links be included. And this can be everything across your first-party pages to third-party pages that are citing your brand. And then, of course, we look at your first-party pages. So how are all of your pages performing in AI search? I'm going to jump into my favorite part of the dashboard and what I think is the most important. And this is going to be our actions layer. And so, as I mentioned, we surfaced to you 4 different ways to take action based off of the data that you just saw. So it's one thing to look at data, it's another to go actually action on it, which you can do all in one platform with AirOps. And so you have 4 opportunities. You can refresh your existing first-party pages. You can create new pages. You can look at those third-party domains where your competitors are being mentioned, but you're not, and you can reach out to those third-party web hosts. And you can also, and this is my favorite, you can look at the Reddit and Quora threads where, again, your competitors are being mentioned and you're not, and you can actually run an AirOps workflow to go and respond with a baked response based off of your brand in these threads. And so going back to how important it is to understand in this race to win AI search, how your competitors are performing, we not only look at where your competitors are showing up and you're not, but we look at how you're showing up compared to your competitors. And that's how we surface these opportunities, these mention gaps, because it's one thing to be mentioned, it's another thing to be mentioned positively. So we're going both for getting mentioned ahead of your competitors and also being mentioned more positively than your competitors. And all of these opportunities that we surface and we tell you to prioritize are enriched with the research that we are running on the back end as to what these AI agents want. So I know that Aleyda spoke to this, that it's going to be different than traditional SEO. AirOps is enriching every single action with the most relevant thing to do based off of what these agents want to see and read. Awesome. All right, I'm going to go hand it off to you, Josh, for Q&A because I think we're running out of time now.
Yeah,
right, and
thank you so much.
Really fast. Sorry, Josh, really fast. Just a reminder, you can reach out to us with the link that's in the chat to book time to see a demo for this.
Yeah, very excited about all of this. For sure, big day on bringing visibility to action. And now jumping into the Q&A, Aleyda, a few questions came in about just where do we start with so many of those items that you had on your AI search checklist? Like, what are you thinking is like around some of the most important there?
Yeah, I will start with 2. Thankfully, you now provide a solution for the first one, understanding better the way that do AI search audiences search, like the behavior that they have, and in these new platforms that can be quite a bit different, and how your content is surfaced there, how your content is being showed there, because maybe you're position 1 across so many of the very relevant and popular topics in traditional search results, right now in Google, but that's not true in ChatGPT, for example. So, and might be different with AI mode as well. So it is important that you start double checking that audience search behavior and how you are performing and for those prompts from those queries that are actually meaningful for your business in these platforms on one hand. Then on the other hand, the other thing that I think is fundamental is what I mentioned regarding crawlability and indexability. Go and talk with your DevOps, with your development team, to make sure to validate that your website is really crawlable. It takes my attention because there have been so much of a buzz with LLMs TXT lately. Google saying on one hand that they won't take them into account because they are not necessarily that useful or meaningful for them. Of course, they have all the data. They are the ones with the biggest index out there, right? But that is not necessarily true with these new AI platforms, nonetheless, right? But rather than creating a TXT file trying to work around good crawlability and indexability, go and fix your actual crawlability and indexability because the implications are major, right? And also the other very important point besides allowing or making sure that AI bots actually are able to crawl your content is if you over rely on client-side rendering with JavaScript, try to move at least to a hybrid approach, pre-rendering or some sort of configuration, even if you cannot completely migrate right now, because that is a non-trivial type of thing to do. But at least that, because otherwise, unfortunately, you might be leaving a lot on the table. And I will recommend you to do at least a little bit of a test or a pilot project with a few pages if you cannot do this at scale necessarily. But yes, to do that as well.
I know it's a question everyone has because I saw it. LLM's text, thumbs up, thumbs down. Is it necessary? Not necessary, just straight answer.
We need to understand that Google, at the end of the day, they what they say might be true for them. And until today, potentially until a few months ago, that was more than enough because they were the only search engine pretty much, or where most of our traffic came from. But now that is diversifying and might be good for them, but not necessarily good for Perplexity or for ChatGPT and other players. So I will say, if it is something that the effort is very low for you to do, I might want to go and test it out, go ahead and do it. It won't hurt. Again, cannot expect much from Google because of what they have mentioned, that it doesn't have a role for them, but maybe for other players that they will, because they haven't said nothing against it on one hand. And then on the other hand, I can see how much of a bigger role it might have for them because they don't have all the data that Google already has, right? So yeah.
And then maybe taking a 1,000-foot view, stepping back a bit, one question that came in was just like, how should SEO teams prioritize AI search versus kind of like traditional search and what they're doing? And like, how do we gauge that trade-off at this particular moment?
Yes. So there are two things. Let's say the current impact, and we know that this is changing so fast. So right now I have heard some, and even myself, right? If you had asked me 2 months ago, I would say, but it's still 1% of the traffic only. It's true. But I have seen that 1% 2 months ago becoming 2% or 3 or 4 in some cases. So it's growing so fast on one hand. And then also I think it's a disservice to the platform in itself to only consider traffic as a metric, because as we have seen, the metrics that we use and the goals that we pursue might be different, because not all of a high share of the outcome of the engagement of the users might not necessarily end up in direct traffic as it did with additional search. So even from a visibility standpoint, a reputation standpoint, a share of voice in a major platform that is used. So better to take a look at the usage that ChatGPT and new AI platforms are getting, and how this is growing more and more. So I would say it would be a disservice to just say, okay, 1% of the traffic, so 1% of resources, and that's it. No, think about the potential, the growth rate, the trend, over time. And I would say potentially, yes, if you will continue investing on traditional search, excellent, 80%, but then 20% and the potential to grow for more, to revise in the next 3 months or in the next 6 months, because this is changing so far for AI search. But at least for the fundamentals of AI search, what I mentioned before, to understand the search behavior and to see how that might impact in your current content strategy. Many times it won't necessarily imply a complete change, right, of what you have already planned, but just to take additional topics or areas or criteria into account for what you're already doing. For technical configuration, technical related configuration, I'm pretty sure that you will necessarily need to rewrite or recode your website from scratch again, just for AI search, right, or AI platforms. But yes, to prioritize certain things that maybe were in the backlog and you hadn't prioritized because they were not that meaningful necessarily for the Google bot because of their capacity to render JavaScript, but that is not true for AI platforms, and you might want to prioritize that again. So this type of thing. So I will say that it's important that we allocate at least for the fundamentals, like important investment, let's say, to make sure that at least that works well.
Yes. Do you have a couple more minutes or do you need to go?
More than happy to continue answering.
Okay, great. Let's do a few more then here. How are you thinking about mentions and citations and how they relate to entity connections to the topic? That was a question that came in from Eric.
That is a great question. And in fact, I believe that that is also true more today, not necessarily 10 years ago, but today in terms of backlinks, also for traditional search. Well, relevance here is important. Topical relevance is critical, right? And we saw that with the example that I mentioned regarding many websites that are authorities in their field, dropping after some core updates from Google because, well, the content that they were previously being ranked for, and a lot of backlinks also going to this page. Well, we're not necessarily on topic on what they actually did, right? I believe that we should take that as a base and take it to the next level with AI search because of the level of sophistication of entity recognition, semantic recognition as well. So if you're already doing, for example, digital PR, that is great because that tends to go, well, very in hand in general to what you do. With the core values and the core functionalities of your products or services as well, and usually tend to come from very authoritative sources as well, not non-meaningful sources or platforms. The challenge for that for SEO, it used to be that usually many times didn't generate a backlink, direct follow backlink back, right, as an outcome, which doesn't necessarily matter anymore for AI search platforms, right? So if there is a strategy that I think that it works very well, it will be that. But then also, what is citable or worthy to be cited in your website, right? That is a question that I always ask clients. And before, what is linkable? Now is what is citable as well. What are the resources? What are the insights? What is the industry data that you can share? The know-how that you can share to, well, establish yourself as an authority that is worthy to be referred, to be cited. Also in communities, right? I have quite a few clients, especially in the SaaS sector, where they work a lot with the developer communities. They have some DevRels type of position, working with influencers, even in YouTube, showcasing how they use their tool and so on. That is great. Working with community and investing in community is the type of information that gets cited a lot because it's human generated, it's human first, it's experience first. And usually it's very relevant. It's connected with what you actually do. And many times it comes from highly authoritative sources from your industry, like the more the better, right? But yes, I believe that this two type of actions, community and digital PR, and then of course the resources that you can create that are evergreen, that are very connected with what you do, the insights and the stats from your industry or the know-how that you have obtained across, well, your ongoing activities with your clients. You can, let's say, reuse them, reformat them, repurpose them in a way that actually get this well-deserved citations.
Great. I love that in so many different ways. AirOps has some new capabilities where you can see your community mentions, you can do your outreach, and also see like queries that are coming in from like ChatGPT and some of these other LLMs. Final question to kind of think about this as we go back to our directors, as we go back to our CMOs from the teams here, as we even go back to our clients, what should we say to all of those kind of people who are asking us questions about AI search? How are we communicating this about just like big picture? What can we say right now about this transition that the C-suite would help the C-suite as far as like pipeline, search, traffic, those type of things?
My recommendation is to see it as a, let's say, evolution of a platform that is not that is going to go away, but will co-live for a while at least. Different interfaces, same principles, but apply in different ways for which you will need resources and flexibility to do a few new things, and potentially, yeah, some extra budget for that as well. Also for new tools that will allow you to monitor that additional activity as well. But my recommendation will be is like, oh, we stop doing what we were doing before and we start now shifting everything to this. But because unfortunately, if you do that, well, the outcome and the impact won't be there very likely in the next few months, but there will be the shift that we have been seeing so far in the last few months, little by little. And what is important is to communicate how critical it is to be the first to establish yourself faster than your competitors, to get and to build, to have that base that these platforms will tend to cite more and more in the future as well. And that doesn't happen from one day to another, like creating a topic cluster, for example, for your main different product lines, things like that. You don't do that in 1 month, right? And you need resources and know-how, etc. So it is important to have that sort of buy-in on one hand, but also provide good expectations that they shouldn't necessarily expect double traffic in 3 months or something like that, because unfortunately that will backlash quite easily, right? Also, the expectations regarding the type of goals and metrics won't necessarily be traffic or direct traffic. And then we can talk about the challenges of traffic attribution here, right? And conversion attribution more than traffic. Because here the outcome won't necessarily be direct traffic, but yes, share of voice and share of mind versus your competitors. Decision makers, one of the best way I have seen so far in to influence them is to show you versus your competitors, do a little bit of a benchmark and how it looks for many very meaningful, popular topics that you really want to be showcased for. So show that and to explain, it's like, yeah, this is becoming little by little the next popular discovery platform after Google. So we need to be there. And this is how we look versus our competitors. Not so good, right? So we need these resources accordingly.
Great note to end on, to think about. This is different. Lots of things are the same, as Aleyda went through and showed those differences. Great resources, of course. We will be sending out a recording of this. We will be sending out a link to Aleyda's resources on the checklist. Feel free to connect with Aleyda here. We have all of her social connections. Be sure and sign up for SEO FOMO. Great resource. I'm sure she would love to dive into a few of these questions that we may have too. And then yes, email us growth@airops.com to get early access to the visibility to action layer. Lots to take in for the rest of the day. Thank you so much, Aleyda. This is a lot to go through, a lot of action steps that we can all take. Appreciate your time so much.
Thank you for the opportunity and have a great day, everybody.
Yes, thanks everyone. We will see you next time.